All right, welcome everybody. We have you here at a very special webinar we're doing tonight. I'm here with Dike Drummond. We're going to be talking a little bit about BurnoutProof MD. So tonight we're going to be talking about burnout, about burnout prevention, about the wellness that we can get as physicians. We have this career that Dike likes to describe as light workers, where we're actually doing this awesome good for people. But because we interact with people in such a vulnerable way at such difficult times in their lives, when people are having some of the worst days of their lives, we're interacting with them. It's by necessity a difficult job, and is a very hard job, and can be dramatically worse when the system you're working in is not ideal for that difficult job, when you're not getting the support you need. So there's lots of different causes of burnout. And the problem with this, and the reason why we talk about it at White Coat Investor, where we're so focused on, financial issues, is because this is the biggest financial risk you have to your plan of reaching financial independence.
Don't mess with your golden goose.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that helps physicians become wealthy is their high income, right? But in order to have that high income, you have to be able to work as a physician, as a dentist, as some sort of medical provider, right? And if you are not able to do that, you no longer have that income. You no longer have this huge wealth building tool. You no longer reach financial independence. And there are other risks to that income besides burnout, right? You could die, but you can insure against that with term life insurance. You could become disabled, but you can insure against that with disability insurance. When it comes to burnout, there is no insurance. You cannot go to Principal or Standard or Guardian and buy an insurance policy against burnout. And so we know that this is a big deal. We see surveys that talk about 50% or even higher in more
63 in the last one.
Yeah, I've seen it as high as 60% more recently of doctors have some symptoms of burnout. And so the closest thing we've been able to come up with to a burnout insurance policy is BurnoutProof MD, which is this program we've been partnering with Dike Drummond and his associates for the last, year and a half to develop and try to make it ideal for as many white coat investors as possible. And he's going to be telling us a lot about both that program that we have. But beyond that, we're going to be talking about some things you can do and implement today to help with burnout, with career issues, and to boost your career longevity. Because the truth is, it matters far more that you can work a full career or most of a career if you want to retire early. It matters far more that you're able to do that than what specialty you pick or even what job within that specialty you take. Because the longer you can work, the better finances work out. It gives you more time to save money. It gives you more time for your investments to compound. You actually get a bigger Social Security benefit. Career longevity is the answer to so many financial questions. But we've got to make sure you can get through the career without the terrible specter of burnout, either forcing you out of the career or making it so miserable that it's not the exciting career. Remember back when you got accepted to medical school, how excited you were and you called everybody and your parents started calling you doctor, and how excited you were to match into residency. We know that for most docs, that fades at least a little bit over the years. But we'd like to get you back to the point where you're excited to get up, to go in, to help patients, to do whatever it is you do, whether it's procedures or whether it's talking or whether it's whatever it is that you do. We want to get you back to where you're as excited about doing that as you were when you opened that match day envelope. And so without further ado, let me turn the time over to Dike. Dike is a family practitioner by training who also practiced full-time in, a primary care family practice clinic for a decade before he kind of turned his practice to helping doctors to overcome this most common malady among physicians. So Dike, I'll turn the time over to you, and anybody who has questions either about the BurnoutProof MD program that we're offering in partnership or just about burnout in general and wellness, go ahead and type those into the comments. They'll come up. We're going to answer those at the end of the presentation today.
Right on. Thanks, Jim. Hello, everybody. Dike Drummond from Seattle, Washington. I'm actually south of Seattle in Tacoma. I'm a family doc born and raised in Indiana. And what I want to do tonight is I want to bring you some 20,000 foot view ways of thinking about your career and ways of thinking about burnout that will reveal to you a way that you can take back your practice, at least partially, from the forces that are probably pushing you around right now. Because 2023, we're at year 3 of COVID. It's switched everything up, mixed everything up. There's a lot of short staffing. And I don't know about you, Jim, but if you keep in touch with your ER friends, it is a nightmare in the ER industry, pretty much nationwide. So what I'm going to do is
it's funny you mentioned that because 4 hours ago I was in the ER. So
yeah, how many people were you rooming?
Unfortunately, normally it's not a big problem in my hospital or my practice. It normally isn't, but there were 2 when I came in this morning.
Okay.
So.
Most of the people I talk to have got dozens. They say, the patients are treating us better, though, because when we code people in the waiting room, they tend to pay attention a little differently. And they're being serious when they tell me this. So there's trends in 23 that are putting your career in danger and you in danger for burnout. Burnout is the number one risk that's going to take you out of being able to earn the money you need to retire. 63% was the last survey, was about 6 weeks ago. It was a Shannon-Felt survey. The same survey that's been done 4 times was reported out from late 2022. And what I want to do is give you some tools to be able to recognize and prevent burnout. I'm going to show some slides. I can't see you when I do it. So Jim, stop me if I get off topic. Here we go. Burnout Proof, your physician career, bust 3 myths and build your ideal practice. Here's our agenda for tonight. Who am I? Why am I the person that's talking to you? 3 burnout myths that if we don't correct them, don't get your stinking thinking turned around, it can reach right up and bite you on the neck before you know it's even there. You're building your burnout prevention strategy, how to create a more ideal practice, no matter what your practice is. We're going to go over the BurnoutProof MD program. I'm going to give you a guided tour, talk about investment options to subscribe to our private online community. And this is a premium support resource. It is the apex of my 12 years of doing this work, 40,000 doctors we've worked with so far. So I want to show you this because I'm really excited about the fact that you might come in and join us. So Dike Drummond, family doc, born and raised in Columbus, Indiana. Our website's called TheHappyMD.com. Went to Mayo for medical school. Family practice residency in the UC Davis system up in Redding, California. 10 years of full service primary care, delivered 500 babies. Was always part of the leadership team too. Executive committee chairperson of our 40 doctor multi-specialty group. Another piece of my leadership experience is I captained all but one of the rugby teams I played on in a 23-year rugby career. I loved being a doctor. I felt like my 3 rooms in the back corner of our family practice wing were Forrest Gump's box of chocolates. You just never know what's behind each door. And I always felt like being a family doc was half detective, gathering the clues and putting together the diagnosis, and half teacher, helping the family and the patient learn how they could help heal themselves. And I loved being a family doc until I didn't. When I was 40, this is back in 2000, my burnout happened real fast and real weird because every day for about a month when I went into the office, it felt like somebody was putting me in a chokehold. If you've ever seen UFC or cage matches, the move is called a rear naked choke. That's what it felt like to me. I didn't know what it was. I thought my batteries were just run down. I was eligible for a sabbatical because I'd been with the group for 10 years. So I took 30 days off, shaved my head, didn't do anything medical, prayed that it would be gone when I went back, but it recurred as soon as I started seeing patients. So on my first day back, I didn't have a lot of coping skills. What I did, though, is I walked into the CEO's office and I signed my resignation and I walked away from my medical career, which I don't recommend as a transition strategy. So if you're listening to my voice right now, either live or recorded, and you feel that way, like you want to chuck it all, please don't do that. It just burns too many bridges and there are other options available. Now, if you're in danger, get out of danger. But if you're feeling so frustrated you want to chuck it, please don't. Let's talk. One of the things that I did immediately after walking away from my medical practice, it was a very fortunate choice for me. I went and got certified as an executive coach. Coach is a different thing than being a doctor, different thing than diagnose and treat. And I've been coaching doctors and entrepreneurs for 23 years now. And after a period of time, when I built a little training company teaching meeting facilitation skills to the folks in the Navy's Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certification program, and some of you may know Lean and Six Sigma because it's used a lot in healthcare for patient flow and process improvement. When that marriage and that business went south in 2010, I launched my little website, TheHappyMD.com. You got to put a "the" on the front, by the way. If you don't put a "the" on the front, it used to be a porn site. Now it's a medical marijuana site. So put "the" on the front, TheHappyMD.com. It was just meant to be a place where I would grow my personal coaching practice, focusing on physicians suffering from burnout. And since that time, every minute of my professional life has been focused on figuring out how to help people recognize and prevent burnout. I've got several thousand hours of one-on-one physician coaching experience. We have 6 certified physician burnout coaches at the TheHappyMD, meaning they're physicians with a bunch of clinical experience who are certified coaches who focus on burnout. And when I saw patterns, what was burning people out, patterns in what was getting them better, I wrote blog posts. Those turned into a book. And then since employee physicians have become very prevalent, it's now the majority of American doctors over the course of the last 10 years, CEOs, CMOs began to contact me and say, hey, can you come and train our employee physicians on how to prevent burnout? So I've actually trained 40,000 doctors at this point for over 175 organizations. I stopped counting both of those things about 3 years ago. It's much higher than that, but I didn't think I needed to quote any more numbers. So what I'm here to do tonight is to show you some things that I've learned myself personally, but through thousands of coaching and training clients. And somebody is always thinking, some people actually say it to my face, he can't teach me nothing. He doesn't see patients anymore. I actually had a guy, what was his name? Dahle? I had a guy named Dahle ask me what I thought I was doing if I wasn't seeing patients. When I first met him 6 years ago, I was training his group. Let me just say, don't shoot the messenger. I'm going to bring you some things that are true for me and are true for hundreds and hundreds of your colleagues. Everything I'm going to talk about tonight has been used by thousands of physicians to their benefit. So don't shoot the messenger. My challenge to you is just take some notes, pick up one thing you want to do differently this evening and do it, and see what results you can generate in your life. So our single professional focus since 2010 has been, we want to be on the internet when you're looking for help. I am very proud of our very diverse group of coaches, our rainbow of genders and colors and everything else. Top left to right on the top row, Pam Pappas, Penelope Shue, Jackie McParlin. On the bottom row, Mark J. Benharjo Singh and Susan Leggett Johnson. Really happy with those people. We do offer one-on-one coaching, several different packages. We have a number of white coat investor folks in our one-on-one coaching programs now. You always get a free discovery session with whichever coach you want to talk to. So if you want some one-on-one help, come and see our good coaches. And I just want to draw a context right now. You have taken some time to be here with me, either recorded or live. It doesn't matter. You've taken some time. And right now there are angels singing. We're not used to hearing them, but they're singing. And here's what I mean. Under normal circumstances, when you're working as a doctor, your experience is one of being inside a whirlwind. Because as soon as you punch the clock at work and you walk into the office or the hospital or the ER or wherever you do your job, things are coming at you from all directions. All the bucks stop with you because you're the doctor. And the interesting thing about the whirlwind is inside the whirlwind, all you can see is the inside walls of the whirlwind. And it's usually not very pleasant because people don't come and see the doctor for happy stuff. Even if they're just coming for a physical, they're afraid because you could find something. So what every doctor needs, especially now, since the whirlwind has been sped up by COVID, sped up by short staffing, sped up by, political polarization and all, global warming, just all this stuff that doesn't let you rest at night. What everybody has to do to stay healthy in these times of rapid change is step out of that whirlwind in a regular rhythm. So step out of your whirlwind with me right now. Take a big breath. You got to take a breath. This is audience participation. Take a breath. And as you exhale, just let go. Anything done to need to be here right now. And pop yourself out of the whirlwind with me, because outside the whirlwind, you look at your practice and all the challenges of your job from a different perspective. There's a famous Einstein quote, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. This is how you create that different level of consciousness. You're here with me tonight talking about your practice. It could be that you're journaling. It could be that you're meditating. It could be you're taking a vacation. It could be you're on a sabbatical. Regular stepping out of the whirlwind is really important to maintain your sanity and maintain your connection with purpose in your practice. This is where you can get insights and new actions and change, because you can see things outside the whirlwind you can't see from the inside. And it's really beautiful when you can have this outside the whirlwind experience with a bunch of other like-minded people, doctors like you. This is a key component of what we provide in the BurnoutProof MD program, because it's really, really important for all of us to work on your practice and on your job and on your career and on your life rather than just in it. You've got to spend some time working on the practice rather than just grinding your way inside Einstein's insanity trap. And we all share an origin story. I'm assuming that you're probably a doctor if you're listening to this. All of us stood at one point in time in a fork in the road, just like this. We can all probably remember it too. It was that fork in the road where you had a decision to make about what you were going to do with your education. Were you going to go to medical school or dental school or PT school or whatever school in healthcare that was calling you, or are you going to do basically anything else? And you looked in the mirror and said, you know what? I'm cut from a different cloth. I'm smart. I'm fast. I want to make a difference. I want to be a helper and a healer. And you chose to go to medical school. And at that choice, you chose to be a light worker. You chose to ally your professional life to the forces of light in the universe as we battle very specific forces of darkness, illness, suffering, death, dying, and family members' crazed attempts to deal with those things. And in this choice, you hoped this extraordinary choice would lead to an extraordinary life. And you set yourself up for some consequences, including higher levels of burnout and a whole bunch of other things. But the key for a light worker is it's about helping, it's about healing, it's about meaning, it's about purpose. And when the busyness of the practice, the craziness of a psychopath leader or a bean counting CMO, if that craziness gets between you and your feeling and purpose and meaning in your practice, then it can be very, very debilitating. 3 burnout myths. What I'm going to do is just name them right now. We're going to correct them for you here real quick, but I got to name them, and hopefully these are a little confusing. I'm just going to say them. Burnout's got nothing to do with your batteries being run down. Burnout isn't a problem. Fundamentally not a problem, so there is no solution. Now keep breathing. We're going to fix all of these for you, I promise. So let's fix the first one right now about batteries. Remember, I said when my chokehold feeling got too much and I decided to take a break, I said I thought my batteries would run down. And I know you've said that too. If I was standing in front of you in a big room of doctors at a live training, I'd ask you to raise your hand and all the hands would go up. What I'd like us all to do is stop it. Stop saying my batteries are run down, because it's not true. It's not accurate. It's a really bad metaphor. So I'm hoping that you can see me at least a little bit. Imagine I'm the Energizer Bunny right now, and I'm doing my Energizer Bunny thing going across the room, and my battery runs out. What do I do? By the way, it's a 4-letter word that starts with S. Yeah, I stop. Energizer Bunny, when his batteries run out, he stops and keels over. Let me just ask you personally. I'm asking you personally. When did you ever stop? When did you ever stop in your training? When do you ever stop when you're responsible for patients? What would have happened to your career if you'd have stopped in training? And what would happen to you now if you stopped when you're supposed to be seeing patients? It's a fundamentally flawed metaphor. If this was true in medical residents or doctors, if this was true that when your batteries are run down, you stop. Every morning you could walk into the hospital where there's a residency program and you'd find dead battery residents just laying against the walls. You'd have to recruit a whole new class every time. So let's let that go. And let me give you a metaphor that actually works. It's an energetic bank account. It's a rectangle, looks like this. It has some structure. It's not complex, but it's got a full mark. It's got an empty mark. It's got this big red area down here. What the heck is that? By the way, this energetic bank account holds your life force, just like a bank account at the bank holds your money. Now, what is this red area? Let me go to the bank analogy and just say, have you ever overdrawn your bank account? Have you ever gotten to the point where your bank account was lower than zero? If you do that, do they close it? Yes or no? Well, the answer is no. What do? They add in fees and interest and drive you even farther. They make it worse. Well, what I can tell you is that all doctors are also equally familiar with showing up to work when your energy level is below zero, when you're in the red. This particular practice of coming in with a negative energy begins typically in residency, because in many residency programs, especially back before 2004, before work hour restrictions, residency is this red area, because residency and energy, residency is like waterboarding when it comes to your personal energy. Your energy is driven below zero by the stress and strain of seeing patients for long hours, and you continue to show up because you can't stop or you'll end up out on your ear. But the challenge is this: if you show up to work when your energy level is negative, and I compare the quality of your work to the quality of the work you produce when your energy is positive, would I be able to measure a difference? The answer is yes. All the studies prove it. So let's just step away from the red zone for a second and talk about when your energy is positive. All good things come from a positive energy level. This is where you do good patient care. You make fewer errors. This is where you enjoy your job more, and your patients and team members enjoy you. All good things come from a positive energy level. This is where you're a better mother and father when you go home. So one of the keys, even though I'm the first person to ever show you this particular diagram, one of the keys in human life, and certainly one of the keys of being a light worker, is to maintain a positive energy balance. There's only one thermodynamic law of burnout. It goes like this: you can't give what you ain't got. And again, I got an audience participation here. If we were live, I would not let you get away with doing anything other than this. Point your dominant hand index finger in the air. Got it? Put it on your heart and repeat after me. I can't give, let's hear it, what I ain't got. And I want you to know, we always think about this as it pertains to patients, but we're also talking about to your team members and to your families, because burnout's exquisitely portable. I always think of burnout sort of like being the character Pigpen in the Charlie Brown cartoons. Pigpen's got that cloud around him. Burnout follows you around and gets on everybody you touch. And by the way, it's a lot easier to see on other people than it is on yourself. So, hey, just really quick, what's your balance? What's your energy balance right now that I've shown you this? Take a big breath and let your awareness go back over the last couple of weeks. And just think, how's your energy balance been? Have you been in the positive like this? Notice that goes up and down day to day. But the trend line there is horizontal. That's a nice, solid, positive energy level. That's a healthy relationship with your energy as a doctor. How about this? Dipping a toe? Is this your curve? Or maybe you're going full onward into the downward spiral down into the red. It doesn't matter to me. What I know, though, is you were taught to ignore your energy because it didn't matter. What I want you to be able to do is wake up your ability to notice your energy levels and know that there's 3 of these energy accounts inside any human being. There's 3 of them. The first one is physical, your physical energy account. If it's tapped out, you get the first symptom of burnout, exhaustion. When you're exhausted with burnout, typically the voice in your head is going to say something like, I'm not sure how much longer I can keep going like this. The second energy account is your emotional energy account. And if it's below zero, you become cynical and sarcastic and suffer from what they call compassion fatigue. You can't be emotionally available to your patients or your staff members or your family members. And the third of these energetic bank accounts is your spiritual bank account. And that it supplies you with the connection between your work and your purpose. When a person's spiritual bank account is empty, they say things like, what's the use? I'm not really making a difference here. It's that severing of their spiritual connection with purpose in their practice. And I want to just say this really quick, just before we go any further. This is another misconception and another myth, and I want to get it off the table, right? Burnout is not a psychiatric diagnosis. Burnout is not a psychiatric diagnosis. It is a normal response to overwhelm and exhaustion in a light worker. A normal response to overwhelm and exhaustion in a light worker. If you're burned out, trashed, I'm not sure how much longer I can keep going like this. Why did I become a doctor in the first place? There's nothing wrong with you. You've been exhausted by your circumstances. And that's where we can help. Quick question. How do you prevent or reverse burnout? Let's bust the other two myths. First of all, I got to tell you, burnout is fundamentally not a problem. It's just not. It's not that it's not an issue, a concern, something you want to do something about it, just that it doesn't meet the definition criteria for the word problem, because the word problem is actually a very specific term. It's a mathematical term. And by definition, problems have solutions. And let's just think about this for a second. If I have a problem and I apply a solution, what should happen to the problem? It should go away, right? So just to be really clear, and again, I can't tell if you can see me, but I'm going to pretend that you can. Right here in my hand, I've got the mathematical problem of 2 plus 2. What is 2 plus 2? And you're going to say, well, 4. Right. Problem solved. I can throw it on the solved problem pile behind me, and I don't never have to worry about it again. 16 plus 16, what is it? Yeah, 32. Throw it back there. Solution to burnout is what? And you cock your head like a dog doesn't know what it's looking at. You don't really have an answer for that because it doesn't make sense on some level, right? Quick question. Do you think that there is some one thing hiding somewhere, we just haven't found it yet, that if you applied it to burnout, you'd never have to worry about burnout again? Do you think there's a solution hiding somewhere? And you're going to shake your head and say you're crazy. Well, what I can tell you is that the reason you're not finding a solution is that burnout's not a problem. It's actually something else. It's a dilemma. It's actually a balancing act, sort of like the balancing act to stay up on a skateboard, right? Or to stay up when you're skiing, right? The balancing act, constantly shifting back and forth based upon the energy that you burn and your ability to recharge. Now, here's the interesting thing with doctors, right? Residency was a survival contest. You were meant to survive. Nobody was interested in you being healthy or happy, so nobody learns how to recharge in residency. Most physicians I know learn how to take really good care of themselves only as they recover from their first episode of burnout. Here's another obvious thing, but I got to say it, right? The energy you're burning is working home, because doctors are people too. They have kids. They have special needs kids. They're single moms, single dads, right? So it's working home, and this balancing act never ends. And by the way, this balancing act actually is true for every human on the planet. It's just that doctors and people who work in healthcare have different issues with energy burn and energy recharge. You can't solve a dilemma. You can't apply a solution to a dilemma because it simply isn't a problem. But if you don't like your current energy balance, you can reach the balance that you seek. You just have to use a different S words. It's not a solution. It's an ST word. It's an STR word. The word is strategy. And the difference between a solution and a strategy is actually quite simple. It's just the number of steps. We're not looking for a magic pill. We're looking for 3 to 5 actions that you're going to turn into habits. And notice I've highlighted the words new and habits there. They're very important special words. They have to be new actions because it takes new actions to get new results. If you don't like your current energy balance, you have to take new actions, step out of Einstein's insanity trap, take new actions to get new results, and pick the ones that make the positive change. And then because the balancing act never ends, you have to wind these things into habits. That's what we do as coaches. We help people find new actions that make a difference and turn them into habits. This takes time and discipline. And this is the first tool I'm going to show you tonight. Now, if you're a doctor delivering healthcare services inside an organization, that's a perfect canary in a coal mine. You're the canary. Your health is a sign of the conditions in the mine. And every canary needs their own personal resilience strategy. And ideally, in your organization, there's somebody's working on making a healthier mind. And do you have to have these two burnout strategies working parallel and simultaneously to get optimum health in the workplace and for you personally? Now, in our practice at TheHappyMD.com, we have a whole bunch of system design and strategy for the organization. We do a whole bunch of organizational support and wellness leadership development. That's not why I'm here tonight. I'm here to focus on you, because we started and we learned these principles from coaching individual doctors who came to us with their own individual burnout. So let's talk about canary strategy. How do you build your personal burnout prevention strategy? Let me just say, burnout is always multifactorial, and anyone's recovery from burnout is always multifactorial. Remember, a strategy has more than one step. Everybody's stresses are different, and there are large themes that you can follow. But what I've found is that burnout has the highest and best use. If you look on the left at the train, they teach you to be a little choo-choo train in med school and residency. It's a survival contest. The only thing you can do is stay on the tracks that they set down for you until you reach the finish line. And then by that point, it's usually been 7 years or more that you've been in the system. You forget that you have free will. So most people, when they get their first job outside of training, when they're board certified first practice, they'll allow somebody to give them a job description off the rack. They are looking for another set of tracks. And if you had no role in designing your job description, your FTE job description, what are the odds that it's pointed right at your ideal practice? The answer to that question is 0. So most people burn out. All doctors burn out at some point in their career. I would say 99.9%. And I seriously doubt the folks who come up to me and say they've never burned out, because I've not seen it not happen. What happens is you get to a point where the job you're working is so uncomfortable, you say, I can't take this anymore. And you make a significant change, either moving to a different practice or changing your practice here. And burnout is the awakening. It is what makes you uncomfortable enough to step back to a path with more purpose. Because nothing will energize a doctor more than feeling like you're making a difference. It's when you get cut off from that feeling that things become so painful. But burnout typically goes through a crisis point. I can't take it anymore. And some people don't make it through the crisis, tragically. So let's take out the drama and the risk. And let me show you 3 steps to always be building a more ideal practice. These are the 3 steps that are the core of our coaching process. Ideal job description, vent of happiness, and master plan. If you've got something to write on, get ready to start taking some notes. So when I meet people who are coming to me in a discovery session because they're thinking they might need a coach, they always want to tell me about all the stuff that's happening to them, all the bad things, the stuff they want to get away from. And I'll listen for a couple seconds, and then I say, hang on a second. I do want to hear what's going on. But first, I want to hear something else. What I want to hear, if you know anything about this, because a lot of doctors are completely baffled by this question. But my question is, if you had a magic wand and you could design your own job, what's your ideal job description? What would you like to be doing? What kind of patients would you like to be seeing? What would you run towards rather than what you're running away from? And normally I get an open mouth stare. But here's what I want to do. And again, I can only assume that you can see me. I want to do a little pantomime here for you, because this is always true. You can avoid everything you don't want in your life. You can avoid everything you don't want in your life, and you still won't get what you want. Because the only way to get what you want is to figure out what that is and go get it. And I'm going to say that twice, because sometimes it takes a little while to sink in. You can avoid everything you don't want in your life, and you still won't get what you want, because the only way to get what you want in your life is to figure out what that is and go get it. So what I work with people on is a positive vision of their ideal practice. And I'm pretty sure you've probably never been asked this question before, because I guarantee you your faculty and your training didn't care. And your current boss and the organization you may work for doesn't care either. They want you to fulfill their job description. My question is, what's your ideal job? What is your highest and best use? What is the natural expression of your choice to be a light worker in the first place? And can we recapture that? Put that magic back in a bottle. So grab a piece of paper. By the way, you can't do this in one sitting. This takes weeks to wake up if you've never done this exercise before. Put my ideal practice across the top and ask yourself these questions. What kind of patients do you want to see? Doing what kind of things? For what kind of hours? And what kind of pay? Or what kind of team? And what kind of organization? Where in the world? Because when you walk through the gates of your residency or fellowship to become a board certified doctor, you are literally free to do anything. And you're still free to do anything. When you give yourself some time, forgive yourself, and sit quietly until the inklings come to the surface and write down your ideal job description, it gives you a target you can aim yourself at and become burnout proof because you have the power to change. Once you've got your ideal job description, we're actually going to do this right now. There's a little back check here. Your Venn of happiness. It's a 2-circle Venn diagram, very simple. By the way, all of our concepts are very simple. We've worked really hard to keep them simple. That doesn't make them easy, and that doesn't compromise their power at all. On one side is this job, on the other side is your ideal job. And this is a Venn diagram of feeling. So again, I hope you can see me. You know what your current job feels like. That's one circle. You can imagine if you will, what your ideal job would feel like. How much overlap does it feel like there is between those two? And I want you to put a number on this, 20, 40, 60, 80%. What's your number? By the way, if your number is less than 40, you're probably uncomfortable. If your number is over 60, you're probably feeling pretty good. And if your number is less than 40% and it's going down, you're going to want to do something about that. Which brings us to step number 3. Step number 3 is to build your master plan. Now, here's a list you could probably write down in an evening. What you do is you put sheet of paper, put a date on it so you know when you started, my master plan, and write down everything that you would change that could align this job or practice more with your ideal job. If I could align this practice more with my ideal practice, what would I change? And write it all down. And when you feel like you've gotten everything written down, hand this piece of paper to your significant other and have them chime in, because I know you've left something off the list and they can help you complete it. Get it all out of your head. Write it all down. Because the next thing you do with the list, if you're using a list properly, is you're going to prioritize, right? But you have to make the list first. So if you've followed this procedure, you've got a pretty good beat on your ideal job description. You know what your Venn diagram overlap is. By the way, all of these techniques work no matter where you are in terms of satisfaction or Venn diagram. If you are 80% overlap, 90% overlap, and you want it to be a little bit more, you can get there with this process I'm talking about right now. So you've got your ideal job description, you've got your Venn estimate of overlap, and now you've got your master plan of things you could change. And any one of those, if you changed it, would get you closer to your ideal job. It's really easy to escape Einstein's insanity trap right now because all you have to do is pick one item on your master plan. I encourage you to pick the smallest one. Now, your doctor programming wants to pick the biggest, hairiest, most audacious one, but pick the smallest one. We want a big win first and take a new action. You're going to get new results. And if you're lucky, it's going to work out for you. And by the way, if you're looking to rehabilitate your practice that has felt uncomfortable or sad lately, use your team. Tell your team at work what you are doing and ask if they will help, and they will. Celebrate all progress like crazy. Celebrate all progress. And whether you're happy with your career or not, please review your ideal job description, your master plan at least quarterly for the rest of your life, especially here in 2023. Because there are so many things that are moving quickly that have the ability to really negatively affect your ability to practice medicine and feel good about it. Artificial intelligence is doing all sorts of crazy stuff. The short staffing just won't quit. There's a retirement cliff of boomer docs that's only just started to bite. And at the same time, there's a whole bunch of innovation creating new job descriptions and new tasks for physicians, new job openings, new companies. There's all sorts of creativity on the edges too. If you know how to interview, I'm going to show you a way to get that knowledge. Know how to interview, and you're flexible in where you live and how you work. So BurnoutProof MD is a culmination of my 12 years and 40,000 doctor experience in burnout prevention for docs and organizations. It is a unique premium experience for members. You won't find anything like it because there's nobody with experience like me starting 12 years ago. I was the first physician coach on the internet for burnout. It's 3 interlocking layers of support that are I call it an ecosystem because literally they don't leave a gap. You're supported 24/7 every minute of the day if you want to be, but you can dip your toe in and pick and choose the services that you use. Here's you in your whirlwind, right? Today, there's a little black string that's around your left leg, but here's you in your whirlwind. And let's say that you believe me, you need to step out of your whirlwind and work on your practice rather than in it. Here's you stepping out of your whirlwind, but notice you're all by yourself. And by the way, there's so many hostile work environments that a lot of the doctors we work with say they don't have anybody at work that they can talk to about these things. So you may, when you step out, be by yourself, and that can be frustrating and disorienting because you're wondering, well, what should I do? Isn't there something I can do besides just fret alone? And by the way, burnout doctors typically burn out their significant others and spouses too. So you may not be able to talk to that person either. Well, what if I could show you a different scenario? Here's you. You're going to step out of your whirlwind. You're still wondering what to do, but what if I can drop in 5 of our top online video on demand trainings to teach you all the things that we've learned about job search and becoming the eye of the storm and getting home sooner and preventing burnout? What if I could give you some tools? Now, you might be happier that you've got some tools to choose from, but you might wonder how you're going to apply them to your practice. And so what if I could give you coaching every week where you could get your questions answered and we could adapt the tools to your situation? And then how about if I could give you a community of like-minded doctors that are available on the web 24/7 and in these coaching calls every week? And what about if I could throw in more than 100 hours of CME? What if I could do all those things in this modern whirlwind? Would that be of help to you? Maybe. Is there a way you could make that work? Well, that's what BurnoutProof MD is. It's our 5 top trainings. I'm going to go through a little bit deeper each slice here. Our 5 top trainings. It's 2 hours of weekly group coaching with me, 50 weeks out of the year. We just took our winter break during the week between Christmas and New Year's, but now we're weekly back at it. We have a secret members only, physician only online community website. It's a hub for all of this. Over 100 CME credits if you hang around, and you can get it by the monthly or annual subscription to the ecosystem for way less than you're thinking it's going to cost. So training, let's look at level 1, training. The Burnout Proof online workshop is in there. That's how you recognize and prevent burnout in yourself and others. It's packed with our best and most popular tools from our coaching practice to get home sooner, build life balance, be the eye of the storm at work, always be creating a more ideal practice. And most of the lessons are 4, 6, 8 minutes long. They teach one tool. You watch a video, you practice the tool, you get the benefit. Ideal Physician Job Search Formula is our groundbreaking job search training that puts you in charge of the process the whole way. The big mistake doctors make when they look for a new job is they act like they're interviewing for medical school. Pick me, pick me, pick me. But you know what? They're going to pick you if you interview the way I teach you to do. But that's completely irrelevant because your job on a job interview is to try and figure out how closely this opportunity matches your ideal job description and whether you're going to take it. It's not about them at all. 1 minute mindfulness is our single breath mindfulness technique for physicians, research proven to prevent burnout. It is the eye of the storm training. one of my favorites, Physician Leadership Power Tools, how to be a much more powerful leader with some very simple skills that make it so you don't have to work so hard and people enjoy working on your team better. And then this one's really important if you're an employee in a big bureaucracy, Physician Guide to Managing Your Boss. How do you manage relationships up the chain of command? Notice each of these has a whole bunch of CME credits. There's 70 credits right there just for doing the trainings. And then we do 2 hours a weekly group coaching on Zoom. There's me on Zoom, got my microphone and everything, got the Zoom squares full. These days we do it on Wednesdays between 4 and 6 Pacific. So we start at 4 Pacific for the folks on the East Coast, and people come in over the course of the 2 hours. It's 2 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. We record video and audio, do a transcript, timestamp contents, learnings, additional trainings, 2 hours of CME for every one of the calls if you're there, right? So 100 hours of CME credits in a year. I'm going to show you one of the file sets from one of our calls here when we go tour the site in a second. And you've got a community of doctors just like you, light workers, all of us working on a more ideal practice in these difficult times, all of us trying to maintain a healthy relationship with COVID and the post-COVID reality of the healthcare industry. We agree and we support each other in creating a supportive, inclusive, transparent, fun culture. Vegas rules always apply. We've become friends. And in addition to the community of people, there's a community website, which is a home base for all of our community activities. Think Facebook, private Facebook page, only way better. And it's also a content hub because all of the training, all of the coaching recordings, and all of the community content is inside the hub. It's equally accessible by phone or computer. And I make sure the environment is safe and protected and private and curated and maintained. Just this last week, somebody posted something about BurnoutProof MD in a group on Facebook, and 5 people came to our page and knocked on the door. It's closed if you're not a member. They knocked on the door, and we have a little quiz that we give them, and then I talk to them for half an hour, and if it's appropriate, we either send them to a one-on-one coach or I let them into BurnoutProof MD, but you don't come in sight unseen. And it's built for all phases of the physician life cycle. We actually have people going through all of these challenges in the community right now. If you're a new graduate trying to build your first practice, if you're mid-career trying to gut it out to retirement, if you find yourself in need of a job and you're going through the job search cycle, if you're struggling with the retirement, if you're a physician leader, we have a whole bunch of people in the community that are actually graduates of our quadruple aim physician leadership retreat. So we talk leadership and wellness at the organizational level a bunch of the time too. And all of us are working together to find the new reality. Let's take a tour. So here we are. I'm logged in. We're inside the BurnoutProof MD ecosystem. I love our logo, by the way. I love these badge logos, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to see a website here that looks fairly familiar. It has a standard feed right down the middle of all the posts inside the community, right? Here's one New York Times article this week about coming collapse of the U.S. healthcare system, right? Here's one about Chen Med, which is one of the organizations I am investigating. Here's a welcome message to one of our new members. Here's our weekly celebration and gratitude. Up here, if you look in the top right, you can send messages to each other. This tells you how many different posts have been made since the last time you were here. There's a search bar right here. And if you think about the search bar in a place like Facebook, Facebook search bars are terrible. LinkedIn is okay. This search bar is really powerful. If you want anything out of the old posts that we have on the site, you're going to find it with just a few keystrokes. Over here are the contents. Right now, we're in the home and events file, right? Here's our list of events. At this point in time, it's mostly just our coaching calls. So here's all of our coaching calls lined up every week with all the different links. These are the appointment slots. And if I go to the training library, here's a training library link over here. This is where we've housed all of our online trainings, right? So here's a user guide. Here's Burnout Proof online workshop. Here's a ideal physician job search formula. Let me just click in, right? So I'm going to click that. And here's the 6 lessons. Here's the one on power interviewing techniques. I'll just pop that open. And you see that it's got a worksheet. It's got an interview question library. There's like 70 of them on there, questions you'd never think to ask. They're all questions that help root out the reasons why people ultimately quit. Here's a video of me teaching you. Here's an audio you can download. Here's the CME from CME-Fi. So that's what the trainings look like. And then also in here are the mastermind call recordings. So here's a whole year's worth of mastermind calls, all stacked up here. And I'll just dive into the last one. It's all there, though. I'll dive into the one we did last week. And here we have 2 units of CME, a video file, a downloadable audio file you can download and speed up and play like a podcast. In this particular call, we talked about a couple of different trainings that I reference here so people can click straight through to the training. Here's the table of contents, timestamps, so you can dig through and find just what you want to listen to. And then here are the group learning and action steps from the call. And we do these resources for every call that we do. It takes me about an hour and 20 minutes after each call the next day to mount it up. We also have a weekly newsletter as well. So you can come here anytime you want. You can post a question and get support from people pretty much 24/7. And I told you we were becoming friends. That's Kim Lucas. If you come in, you'll get to know her. That's her daughter, Vivian. She just got engaged in the Caribbean. So that's her celebration. And we're all piling in saying woohoo. So there's a tour of the ecosystem for you. Let me just hit you with a couple of testimonials from folks that are in the system. Found a group of friends I enjoy connecting with. I've become a better person, physician, and I hope a better leader because of participating in the coaching. For that, I am most grateful. And here's another on the weekly calls. We understand what healthy communication and group dynamics feel like. The power of stories and journeys, that it's okay to not be okay. I actually say this on the call. I say, look, if you're going to fall apart anywhere, you do it here because we've got your back. Most of all, we're learning and evolving. Lots and lots of fun, very authentic, no BS allowed. That's true. I'm the one who's moderating things. So let's talk a little bit about the features and the pricing. So we've talked about the 2-hour weekly group coaching, the 5 of our top online trainings, unlimited access to those with all their CME, the support community, the members, the website, the fact that it's easily accessible on both desktop, tablet, and mobile devices, up to 160, almost 170 hours of CME credits in the first year alone. And you can access this through either monthly or annual subscription. But before I show you the prices, I just want to be really clear. I had somebody talk to me yesterday and they were saying, I'm just looking around to see what's out there. What I want you to know is there are individual components of this out there, so to speak, but nothing like this combination, this ecosystem. So you can find coaching for physicians. This is actually the coaching for the price for our 12-call package. And our coaches are physician executive coaches. You'll easily spend $5,000 for 12-call as a life coach on the internet these days. Trainings, our training retail prices for these training right now, those are the actual retail prices. If you wanted to buy them individually, that's what it would cost. That's what it would cost. And if you were looking for a private online community for doctors and you look for something like this, you're easily going to pay $300 a month. By the way, 12 calls of coaching. We've got 100 hours of coaching over the course of a year. The total there is $12,085, right? I'm just going to leave it sitting there for a second because you know what? It's not 10, it's not 8, it's not 5. The actual price for BurnoutProof MD is either $300 a month on a monthly subscription or $3,000 a year. If you buy the yearly subscription, you save $600 because it's only 10 months rather than 12. This is a legitimate use of your CME expenses. If you have your own business, it is a legitimate business expense. I always classify it as professional development. Now, I am going to throw a little bit of a webinar bonus in here because Jim and I only do this once or twice a year. So what I'll say is if you buy with an annual subscription before 6 p.m. on Sunday, so this is Thursday in the evening, 6 p.m. Sunday, if you buy an annual subscription and pay in full, I'll take you on a private one-on-one manage your boss training. I'm going to show you how to manage your boss. We're going to target somebody in your organization that you want a position of influence on, and we're going to create a campaign to manage those people. And I'll also take you on an orientation through the website. if you sign up and pay in full for an annual subscription between now and Sunday, the 15th at 6 p.m. Pacific. And let me just end up, and I'm going to give these links to Jim as well so that he can send them out to you in the follow-up emails. Here's the link to go to the page where I will very shortly be mounting this webinar and where there are links to purchase your subscription in the BurnoutProof MD program. It actually looks like this. It looks like this. So when you get to that page, here's a link to join. Here's where the webinar will be. This is a webinar from the last time we did it. And a little more information, some more testimonials. Here's the registration links here and here. There's the link. It's real simple, bit.ly/BMPMD to begin. And then if you're somebody who is watching on a desktop and you love those QR codes, there's a QR code for you. And I know it works because I tested it.
And if you can't remember the link later or can't type all the letters quite right, you can always go to whitecoatinvestor.com. Under the recommended tab, you scroll down there and it talks about physician burnout coaching. And that'll take you to the links that'll get you where you want to be as well.
Yep. And then when we put this webinar up, if you've enjoyed or learned something and you can think of some people who might like this information too, it might benefit them, just share the link. Let them come and watch the webinar. They can make their own decision. So I haven't got any more prepared remarks at this point.
And we'll stay here and answer questions, regarding burnout and that sort of thing, and talk with you as long as you want to talk. I think Michelle was going to be doing some screening on the questions for us. But let's start with this one from Mike, which I think is more of a financial question than it is a burnout question. He's talking about the Road to Dublin strategy. And the only thing I can possibly think you're referring to, Mike, is in the White Coat Investor book, the original one from 2014. I talked about the Road to Dublin, which is essentially, carving out a portion of your income, investing it in index funds. And that certainly works fine, whether interest rates are high or low. So no real change to that strategy with interest rates.
Well, I was just thinking I was in Dublin earlier this last year. I was in Dublin in June, sitting on the top of the Guinness Brewery, drinking my Guinness beer, looking out over town.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's talking about something different, but I'm pretty sure that's what he's talking about. That's the only time I can remember ever talking about the Road to Dublin.
Well, and let me just say one thing, because one of the more common questions we get is what about EMR inbox? What about digital overload? Let's talk about that for just a second. And let me just exercise your muscles on what you just learned. Do you think when it comes to documentation and inbox that there's one thing you can do one time and you never have to worry about that again? And the answer is, of course not. So this whole digital issue is not a problem either. So stop trying to look for a solution. What you're looking for is a strategy. And typically when I'm working with somebody who says to me, I have half of my charts undone at the end of the day, and I'm up till 2 a.m. after I tuck the kids in bed doing my chart work every day. What I do is I sit with them, and we sometimes will take a couple of different calls to imagine that I'm following them around with a slow motion camera like they use in the Super Bowl, so you can slow it way down. And I bust up how they do their pre-work on their charts, how they chart when a patient's in the room, what they do after the visit, what they do at home. We tear it all apart. And typically what ends up happening is they learn a way to do a handful of things together. So for instance, this is an example from somebody inside BurnoutProof MD, who ever since we sat down and did this, she doesn't take charts home anymore. So she started to do pre-charting. She and her nurse work together, and they actually pre-chart. They do a first pass at pre-charting on their scheduled patients 2 weeks ahead of the appointment. They also do a quick round of pre-charting the night before. She does some pre-charting before she goes into the room, and she always has her assistant ring her out of the room 5 minutes early on the visit, and then she can partially finish the note so that it only takes her about a half hour, 45 minutes to finish all the notes on her charts at the end of the day. And every once in a while, she takes a chart or two home, not with her, but home in the computer. And with that strategy of pre-charting, working with her assistant, doing some things in the room, doing some things afterward, she's completely eliminated this thing that was an absolute torture to her. And by the way, the biggest issue for her and there will be some people who are listening to us right now who will be shaking their heads because they recognize themselves, is that she was writing the great American full sentence, perfectly spelled and punctuated novel every single time. And I can spot these people in an audience, a live audience. I tell people, I ask the question, do you ever need to hit the semicolon key? And 90% of the room will be shaking their head. And then there's some person that'll sit up straight and start to raise their hand and argue with me. It's like, you're charting at midnight, aren't you? You got to give that up, right? So automating and having a fully developed strategy for the digital overload that you get these days is a really important thing to pay attention to.
I like the point you made earlier, Dike, about the Venn diagram of your ideal life versus your actual life, your ideal job versus your actual job. And increasing the overlap there, I think, is perhaps the most important thing that one can do in burnout. Because when you're living your ideal life, you don't feel burned out from it. Now, it does take a while to sit back and picture and figure out exactly what your ideal life is. And for most people, you can't get perfect overlap.
You won't.
But going from 30% to 80%, it changes your happiness level dramatically.
Well, and let's just go into this a little bit deeper, because I'm only able to get you the broad brushstrokes. Let's go a little deeper. Going from 30% to 35% is life-changing. You know why? You did it. Because what happens is people get beat down in a bad job with a bad boss, and they lose faith in the possibility of positive change. It's when you feel like the light at the end of the tunnel just went out. So if you can identify some specifics about what you'd want to have in your ideal job and move even the smallest baby step in that direction, it completely changes your energy, your faith. It can completely recharge you, even though you acknowledge it's only 35%, but it was 30 yesterday and I've made a positive change. It's a huge deal. And another thing I'll tell you is nobody gets 100%. So when you're making your ideal job description, if you want something in your practice or not in your practice, write it down. Even if you don't know how to do that thing, write it down, because there's a number of different ways that you can use that to increase your satisfaction even farther. Yeah. Write it down.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring another comment up here. This one's not actually a question. It's probably more of a criticism than a question, but I think the point is worth talking about. And the comment is, hang on, that's not the one I meant to click on. Let me pull that one back off. This one here. Amanda Agape. Burnout treatment is not paying for a course or videos. It's taking control of your time and your destiny. Is becoming what this gentleman is, an entrepreneur. Create, escape the rat wheel. And the underlying idea here is that you've got to, leave your job essentially to treat burnout. And obviously, if you're financially independent, and walking away from your job is one option for treating burnout. But obviously the techniques we're talking about, the vast majority of them work with the job you have. Do you want to address that a little bit more, Dike?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at me, my course, going from being successful as an employee and actually a shareholder physician in a doctor-owned company, seeing patients for insurance, fee-for-service insurance, one at a time like everybody else, and then splitting off, and eventually, remember, there was 10 years between when I quit my medical practice and when I launched TheHappyMD.com, becoming an entrepreneur and doing what I'm doing now. By the way, somebody like me who has something bad happen and then becomes a coach or a consultant around that bad thing, that's called wound work. I'm willing to talk about my wound so that maybe we can meet there and help each other. In my case, that's how it turned out. But I can guarantee you the majority, actually, I've never yet met a doctor who didn't say this to me. These are people who are coming to me because they know I'm a burnout coach. They all say this: I still love my patients. I still like being a doctor. I don't want to stop being a doctor. I hate this job, or I hate this boss. And so what we do is, again, what is it that you want your practice to be like? Start taking some baby steps in that direction. And here's the way it typically works. So if your overlap is 20% and we work together and you make a handful of changes and 6 months later I say, what's your overlap now? And you say it's 50%, I'm going to ask you this question. Is that enough? And the person might say, no, I want 70. And I say, okay, great. As you look at all the work you've had to do to get to 50, do you think you can get to 70 here? Or are we going to have to get you a new job? And at this point in time, about 30% of my clients change jobs. The vast majority of them have a psychopath boss or a boss that has them under their thumb. And those are fairly easy to figure out. But yes, that person's general description of taking charge of your life and taking charge of your time and moving into a situation where you can feel like you have a good overlap with your ideal job. Yes, generically, that's what you do. In my case, it turns out to be an entrepreneur, a trainer, coach, consultant entrepreneur. But I wouldn't expect anybody to follow in my footsteps because I consider myself to be a raging example of survivor bias.
Yeah, for
There
sure.
were so many ways. There are so many ways places along the way when I could have lost it and not ended up here. I'm very, very, very lucky. I actually feel blessed that years ago when I started the practice, I felt to myself, gosh, I wish I was around to talk to me back in 2000.
Yeah, I know how you feel about that. But, I'm a big fan of ownership. I like seeing people own their practice in whatever way they can. I like seeing them buying, a surgery center associated with it, or a radiology center, or a dialysis
Right.
center, whatever your
Right.
specialty might be. I do think decreasing physician ownership is contributing to burnout because you
Right.
have less control over your work environment. But I don't know
Absolutely.
if the solution is simply to go, get a job that you own. I think that's too simplistic of a solution to burnout.
Well, and again, you're using that solution word. I encourage you to stop. But one of some of the big issues around burnout, just the generic sea changes around burnout, are the rise of the employee physician. So we crossed half of physicians in 2017. It's up around 70% of physicians are employees right now. And believe me, if you're in a hospital-owned system that's fee-for-service and you're a primary care doc, they're going to grind you to dust and tell you you're losing them money, and you're not, because they're using you for their business plan. What I'll tell you is if you want to take ownership, you want to take control, you have to realize that your revenue model determines your practice day. And if you are a fee-for-service and an employee, you're in a world of hurt unless you're good at what you can do and you can satisfy the production requirements of your particular employer. But I can also tell you, and I'll say it again, there is so much crazy stuff going out there on the fringes if you're willing to interview and you know what you're doing when you interview. So for instance, we have a person in a BurnoutProof MD, an ER doc, psychopath boss, drove her out of her job. So she's looking for jobs. Now what she's doing is working as a virtual medicine doctor for Kaiser in Oregon. She lives in North Carolina. She's working shifts for folks in Oregon and part of the leadership team of these people that are developing an enormous virtual medicine program. She would have never even dreamed up a job opportunity like that. But she likes designing things, being creative leadership, and she likes, sitting in her jammies and doing her virtual medicine and making pretty good bucks. So if you're not feeling the love, the thing I want you to do is to feel confident about interviewing and getting out there. And that's one of our specialties inside the ecosystem, is supporting people from the point of time where they decide they're going to quit to the point of time when they're installed on the other end. Because we all love the stories of how you're doing. We see you all beat up and we see you smiling. It's a really good thing to watch.
All right, let's take another question here. Dike, I love Jim's concept of living like a resident until all loans are paid off. After that, any tips to avoid the golden handcuffs, which surely plays a part in burnout?
What are golden handcuffs?
I think what we're talking about here, that high income you have from working too much, I think is probably what we're referring to here when we're talking about the golden handcuffs.
Well, don't put golden handcuffs on. Nobody handcuffed you. One of the first things I ask as part of my screening questions when I'm dealing with a person who comes to me, and again, my reality is this: I don't market to anybody. I established dominant position in search engines for terms like physician burnout, physician leadership when I started my practice in 2010. There was a point in time in 2011 when I had 9 of the 10 listings on the first page of Google for the word physician burnout, because nobody else had actually written a page that was supposed to be there, and I wrote 8 of them. So people come to me all the time, come to our coaches all the time because they're burned out. They're wondering whether they need a coach. And we do a discovery session, which means we talk to you for an hour, help you get a little strategic plan, and you can decide whether you want to hire us or not. Two of the questions I always ask are, what's your net worth? And if somebody says, what's that? I say, get a pen, write down fee-based financial planner and get your head out of that dark, stinky place. Okay, so first of all, there's that. And the second one, I say, what's your nut? What do you mean by nut? Well, what does it take to feed the beast every month? How much cash do you have to bring home after taxes to pay your bills? And it's always, 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 always so very difficult when I'm talking to a doctor from San Diego who has $1 million house, had bought 2 Teslas, and puts all 3 of his kids through private school. And his legitimate monthly nut is $35,000 a month. Those are golden handcuffs. He put them on himself. And so I'm just going to quote Benjamin Franklin. The key is to spend less than you make. Right? So I believe right now, and my financial planner and I have talked about this at length, I believe that you are very close to financial freedom at this point in time if you've got a $3 million nest egg. And $3 million is still within the reach of an average doctor working average hours and making average money still. When it will cross the threshold where that's not possible as a physician, we don't know. But if you apply yourself and you're frugal at all, don't put the handcuffs on in the first place, you're going to be okay. The key is, can you continue to maintain this connection with purpose and feeling like you're making a difference? Can you feel good about what you've had to do to get that money?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously everybody's, financial independence number is going to be a little bit different, but it comes down to what you spend. The golden handcuffs are your spending, not your earning.
Right.
So, even after that live like a resident period where you're knocking out student loans, getting a jump start on your, saving up a nest egg, getting your emergency fund in place, getting into your dream house, those sorts of things, even after that point, if you let spending go crazy, you are locking yourself into working full-time and working full-time plus for a long time. So you can see how financial planning and burnout are intimately related. There's a reason that we're talking about this here at the White Coat Investor, that we have this resource for you, that we partnered with these guys to put this together. As Dike mentioned, they've been doing this since 2010, right? 2010 is like the year before the White Coat Investor started. Right? You've seen burnout coaches coming and go in the last few years, but the reason we partner with these guys is because we went looking for the best, went for who's been doing it the longest and done it for the most number of docs and worked the system out that works. And so that's why we're talking to you about this BurnoutProof MD program. We're trying to find a system that makes sense, that can be offered at a price point that keeps them in business, as well as helps as many people as possible. And so that's why we're so excited about this.
And I'll say that when it comes to money and burnout, when money comes into people's thought processes about burnout, it's usually because it can be a source of stress, an additional source of stress outside of the practice. And another thing I'll say is I still don't know how it happens. I was fortunate enough to be able to not have to worry about this, but think long and hard before you accumulate $400,000 worth of student loans. Think long and hard about that.
Yeah. The problem is nobody on this call is at the point where you think long and hard about that. It's a different audience. And I try to reach pre-meds. I try to reach young medical students. It is tough to get financial information to people when they are making the decisions that impact that, which is not only what school they go to, whether they go to school at all, but also specialty choice and particularly job choice and location of where that job is after residency. Because there are plenty of physician jobs out there and locations out there where $400,000 in student loans, believe it or not, are not an insurmountable problem.
Right.
That's something that can be knocked out in just a couple of years by lots of doctors. But if you're going to go to San Diego and you're going to take a job that pays $150,000 a year, it better qualify for public service loan forgiveness.
Right. I actually worked with Avera out of Sioux Falls some years back, and they were offering $200,000 signing bonuses if you'd sign a 3-year contract to work in one of their remote clinics. And I knew a person that was signing up for their third 3-year package and was tucking it in the retirement because the loans were now paid off.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm not seeing a lot of new questions coming in here. Any other comments you want to make, Dike, or anybody you got last minute questions? Get them in because we're going to turn this webinar off soon.
Yeah, if you're an employee doc in a fee-for-service system, especially if it's owned by a hospital, you need to learn how to manage your boss. There is wiggle room inside your job description for more of what you want once you know what your ideal job description is. But at some point in time, your company could be sold out from under you. We've had people have their company change hands 2 and 3 times in a single year. So the forces in the industry are not going to adequately staff you. You're not going to get respect inside a hospital system unless you're a high earner. And things are going to shift over the course of the year. We cannot see now what will be the biggest issue by the end of the year. So flexibility is going to be really important. Learn how to manage your boss, learn how to interview and find a new job, and be flexible. And for those of you who are stuck in a particular geographic location because, you have kids that are juniors in high school and stuff like that, I understand. It doesn't mean you don't interview. Don't give up. Don't be Eeyore. Figure out what you really want and go get a little tiny slice of it and notice how much it makes you feel better. And if you need some help, we're here. By the way, put a month in BurnoutProof MD, put $300 down, come and see us, see if you like it. If you don't. It's a $300 investment that could save your career, for God's sake.
Yeah. When you think about your future earnings, it really is, it puts the value perspective really into.
Well, and typically the reason that doctors don't get too far in the hole, typically the reasons that doctors are so conservative financially, typically the reason this stuff happens is because we're pieceworkers. We realize that another $1,000 is so many more patient visits. So typically we're a little more disciplined with that. But if you're in a high earning procedural career, I just can't relate to that personally.
Yeah, I haven't been there, huh? Yeah, for sure. It, but I'll tell you what, I know a couple of surgeons, they're married, they're both general surgeons, and every now and then they have very stressful events. All of a sudden, a kid's sick from home. Well, who's going to cancel their cases today?
Right.
So even when you make a lot of money, there's still plenty of stressful events out there. Although
I had a client,
a lot of the financial worries for sure.
I had a client one time that was in rural Georgia. He was an OBGYN in rural Georgia, did a whole bunch of GYN surgery. And he didn't understand why his neighbors didn't like his jet helicopter in the backyard. They would shake their fists at me every time I take off. You don't understand this?
That's a lot of gyne surgeries to get a helicopter.
Yes.
So go to whitecoatinvestor.com. There's a recommended tab. It's where we put recommended financial advisors, recommended insurance agents, recommended student loan refinancing companies. Scroll down there to where it says Physician Burnout Coaching. And that's it. That link will take you there. And you can learn more about the program there. You can click through, you can purchase it, whatever, and get all the information you need about it. And like I said, just trying this out. See if it helps, right? What do you have to lose? You have nothing to lose. See if this community can help you develop strategies to deal with the stresses of being a physician, to deal with a toxic job, to deal with figuring out what you want and getting it. So let's wrap this up. We appreciate your time today, and especially the what you do each day. Your work is important. It's important work. That's why it's so hard. That's why they pay you well to do it, is because it's difficult work, and we thank you for it. Oftentimes, we're people pleasers as docs. We go a long time off a single thank you from a patient or their family. And if no one told you thank you today, let me be the first. Thank you for what you do. It is important. Yep. And thanks for your attention to the webinar tonight. And or whenever you're watching this, we'll post it on YouTube. And you can check out anything you missed on it if you got in late, and check it out as soon as we get up in a day or two. So thanks again for your time. And hopefully we'll see you getting help with burnout that you've been experiencing.
The hosts of the White Coat Investor podcast are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is free entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.